Hey guys, this is Craig, and I want to welcome you to the Black Sheep Experience. Thank you for hanging out with me on the podcast. I really deeply appreciate your presence here, and so thank you so much for being a part of this time and space. I have an interesting conversation to bring to you today from a gentleman by the name of Blake. Now, Blake is a member of the Church of Satan, right? He also has his own podcast on YouTube called The Demented One. And so Blake and I connected on Instagram, which, by the way, that's a great way to connect with me. I'm really active on Instagram. Just search for the Black Sheep Experience. You'll find me. You can DM me, whatever. I am really good about responding, and I'd love to connect with you. So anyway, he and I connected on Instagram, started having a little bit of a conversation back and forth, and decided that we should do a podcast together. And so that's the conversation that I'm bringing to you. And so I think you're really going to enjoy it. Now, if you want to connect with Blake, the way that I did it was, again, through Instagram, but that's kind of my thing, right? And he's at official_Demented One. That's where you can find him on Instagram. And if you want to check out his podcast, it's on YouTube/Demented One. And his podcast has other Satanists. It's really focused on that idea, that philosophy. And they talk about their ideas, their philosophy, some of their practices, which is kind of the conversation that I'm bringing to you today. So I hope that it's enjoyable to you. If you don't know much about the Church of Satan, you may be a little surprised. They're actually atheists, right? Almost like hardcore atheists. But you know what? I'm going to let Blake explain that to you. And so without too much more, let's go ahead and jump into the podcast quickly. If you don't follow the Black Sheep Experience on Instagram, please go do that. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you're more than welcome to do that. Craig Hostetler, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm also on Facebook. There's a Black Sheep Experience page there. I'm on there personally as well. I would really love to connect with you guys. So if you'll take a few moments, like and follow, all that, whatever, the perspective is for that social media platform, just go do it, man. Just go do it. And let's connect. I can't wait to connect with you on those spaces. All right, without any further ado, let's head into the conversation with Blake from The Demented One.
Hi, this is Blake from The Demented One, and although I am a member of the Church of Satan, I do not speak for the Church of Satan.
Hey everybody, this is Craig. Welcome to the Black Sheep Experience, man. I really appreciate you hanging out with me on the podcast. This is going to be a cool episode. I've got a guy with me today that is a member of the Church of Satan, and he's a Satanist, and he also has a podcast called The Demented One, where they talk about really satanic ideas or philosophies. And welcome to the podcast, Blake. Thanks for hanging out with me, man.
Hey, Craig, man, I'm glad to be here, man. Thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah, dude. So I am really interested. Years ago, and it's been quite a long time ago, I read the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey, and I know that there's different veins of Satanism, but would that be the one that you kind of subscribe to?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So now, I guess we'll dive into that in just a little bit. But how long have you actually been? I don't know. Would you call it practicing or following? What would you call that?
Well, I've been a Satanist. Really, it's an old saying that Satanists are born, not made. But kind of to explain that, I'd have to kind of go a little bit back, kind of my childhood. I grew up in the great state of South Carolina, good old Southern state,
Right.
Which they call the Bible Belt, which I don't know how much Bible they have in their belt, but but that's where I'm born and raised. And my mom, she was a Christian, your typical normal Southern Christian. We didn't go to church every Sunday or every Wednesday, except like Easter, Christmas. And then sometimes she'd get a little wild hair, and then we'd go to church every Sunday and Wednesday for a couple of weeks. And then she developed spine cancer. And now during all this, I still always had questions about the Bible. And I was kind of that annoying kid in Sunday school, always asking, the crazy questions. Like, well, what if God was really the bad one and the devil was the good one? God just wrote this book to manipulate us and all this stuff, And but by the time I was 12, my mother passed away, and my aunt took me in and raised me. Now, my aunt was totally different. She was a strong Baptist Christian, Southern Baptist. So when I started living with her, we were in church every Sunday, every Wednesday. I eventually got into going back to where my mom went to church, which was a Church of God of Prophecy. I'm sure you're familiar with that denomination.
I am, yep.
Yeah. So started going there and kind of getting involved, because at this time I really felt bad, I guess would be the word to use, because my mother will always try to get me, I guess, to convert and be a Christian. And I just felt bad because I never gave her that while she was alive, being that young. And so I started getting involved in this church, and I still had all my questions, with the Bible and stuff, but I got involved, and the pastor there started asking me, well, would you speak to the youth group, like on a Wednesday night? So I started doing that and kind of just fell into doing that. Well, then the pastor, I guess, recognized, he said, well, I think you have a calling to preach. So he asked me to preach on a Wednesday. So I was doing that, and I was young. I was like 14, 15, maybe 16 years old. And so I just felt like that was just the right thing to do. And then by the time I got ready to graduate high school, my aunt kind of told me, I had two choices. Either after I graduate, I could get a job and move out, or, she would help me through college. Well, I've been preaching and doing this stuff. I figured, well, I'll just go to Bible college. And I enrolled in World Harvest Bible College, which is Pastor Rod Parsley. I don't know if you're familiar.
I am.
With him. Okay. Started going there. When I got there is really when I began to really seriously question the whole Christianity faith and all of that, because I've seen a lot of crap, a lot of junk being there. And that's when I was really introduced. I met a guy there. We became good friends, and I would talk to him and tell him a little bit about things of how I, thought. He said, well, I think you should check this guy Anton LaVey out. He's wrote some books. And he said, I think, because what you're saying kind of lines up with what, his whole thing is. And he told me, he said, there's a book called the Satanic Bible. And I was like, whoa. I said, I'm not into all this devil worshiping, crap. He said, no, it's nothing like that. So I remember going to the Barnes & Noble, and which I went all the way on the other side of town because I knew all the Bible college students went to a certain one. And I went up, bought the Satanic Bible, took it back to the dorm, and I started reading it. And that's really where I said, wow, all this in this book is kind of the way I've been feeling, and it's just really a kind of a mirror. It's me. And I remember hiding, under my bed because I was scared if the RA or somebody would come in and find it. But that's really where I began to read it and really figure out that's who I was. I just didn't want to call myself a Satanist at the time. I just wasn't comfortable with that. But I lined up with the philosophy. Mm-hmm. Well, after I graduated, I put it, on the shelf, and I didn't read it, didn't think about it, went on with my life. And then there was one day I was unpacking some stuff, and I found that book again, and I reread it, and I was like, I just came to the point where I said, you know what, I am a Satanist. This is who I am. So
So
that's kind of the story how I got there.
Yeah, I mean, what were some of the things, that you really identified with, because so I read the book as well, and then there's another book quite similar to it called Might is Right, with I'm sure you're familiar with. So I read that one also, but I'm just curious for you. I mean, let's talk about a few of the things that originally resonated with you from that book.
Right. Well, really, what really resonated with me was that Satanism is really a carnal philosophy, carnal religion, and it's just all the things that, as a human, you naturally are, in my opinion. And things like the indulgence instead of abstinence, and just enjoying your life to the fullest, and not worrying about a god or a devil, and really pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. And if you did something wrong, then you admit it. You don't blame it on a devil. You realize you did it and you correct it. Or if you do something good, or accomplish something, then you don't sit there and give credit to a god for it. You realize that you did that. And that really resonated with me. And just enjoying your life, not worrying about an afterlife, because in my opinion, no one's ever, died literally and came back. We don't know what happens after life. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that claim they have and whatever, but personally, you don't know. I don't believe in an afterlife. I think when you're done, and you enjoy your life while you're here. You're not here very long, so live it up. Now that doesn't mean that you go out and break the law and do all that kind of nonsense. But, in the fines of the law of the land, so to speak, you do what makes you happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically, when we're talking about LaVeyan Satanism, what we're saying is atheist, yes?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so no God, no devil. That's all.
Right.
And so in the LaVeyan school, basically, the devil is what, an image for rebellion, or what is the use of that?
The devil to us is really a symbol of pride, liberty, and individualism. It is, a symbol of the one that questions all things. And, I think that you should question all things and not take everything that you're taught. And that really resonated with me too, because coming up from, a Christian home and that was just indoctrinated with all of that stuff, you're not really taught to believe or, find out things for yourself, and a lot of people, especially here in the South, a lot of people here, they don't even know really who God is or what a God is or the Bible. They just believe it because they've been taught, from their grandmother or their mother, that this is just the right thing to do. You got to believe in a God. You got to believe in the devil. There's a heaven and there's a hell, and never really think for themselves,
Yeah. So, I mean, in regards to your, so to call yourself a Satanist, right? Or to be a member of the Church of Satan, for instance, those are fairly bold steps that are, I think you'd agree, a little more dramatic than just being a non-believer, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think, to call yourself an atheist, right, now in the time we live, it's you hear a lot of that, of course, back in the day, that was kind of a bad word to say too, if you said you were an atheist. But the way I look at it, an atheist says, I am not that. And a Satanist is saying, I am this, but it is, we like I said, we don't believe in a God or a devil. So it is basically atheism, just kind of dressed up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly the trappings of it or the style associated with it, it's, I don't know if dark is the right word, because that gives a strange connotation to it, but it has the appearance of evil, right? I mean, the upside, the inverted pentagram, the, mostly black type stuff. I mean, what is that? Just an appeal to that kind of? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's when Anton LaVey formed the Church of Satan in 1966, it was really because I've heard a lot of people even in interviews ask Anton LaVey or the current high priest Magus Gilmore, why call it Satan? Why can't you just call it just atheism? And Anton LaVey, he really did that to really get the attention of people too, because people, they hate that word Satan, and it really, I guess, it keeps the people that shouldn't be involved. Especially when it comes to the Church of Satan, it keeps the wrong people out and gains the right people that identify.
Yeah, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way at all, but he was also a little bit of a showman, and that doesn't equate with phony. I'm just
right.
So I don't want you to feel like it's
he was definitely a showman. He worked in the carnival. He did all sorts of things. He was definitely a showman, and I think he was the best one to do it. That formed this philosophy. I think if anybody else, maybe during that time, that came along, they might have not had the goods, the right stuff to do it. But I think with his background, I think he was the right one to do it. Yeah.
So what's interesting to me, I guess, is it is quite a bold statement. And at some point in time, you decided, you know what, I am claiming this. Is it just because it was, and we've already agreed it's a step beyond atheism. Is it just because it's something that really did deeply resonate with you personally?
Yeah, it really did. And like I said, when I read the Satanic Bible for the first time, I didn't, because like I said, my background, I was always taught Satan was bad, Satanism, and blah, blah, blah. But just the further I got, I just really had to come to that conclusion, I am a Satanist. And it's just who I am. It's not, I didn't wake up one morning and say, I think I'm going to be a Satanist today. It's just really who I am, and it's who I've always been. But when I read the Satanic Bible, it just really kind of, I guess, gave it a name. It really explained, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is an interesting philosophy. I will tell you that. I think that one of the first things I noticed was, and I can't remember if they're called the 9 satanic rites or what they are, but they're similar to the 9
the 9 satanic statements. Didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah.
Yeah. And so that was sort of one of my first, I guess, crossings with it. As you're diving in, that seems like one of the things that comes up real fast. But
right.
So I want to talk to you about a couple of those. Whenever we talk about, for instance, number 4, which says Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it instead of love wasted on ingrates. Now, I don't want to freak anybody out here with whenever I agree with you on things.
Right. Totally understand.
So that would be considerably different than not what Christianity practices, but what it teaches. So let's talk a little bit about that. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. The Satan represents kindness to those who deserve it. I don't think that you can love everybody. And I know we keep going back to Christianity, but that is what, you're taught is you have to love everybody. And I think, it's really silly to think you can love everybody, because if you're just throwing out love to everybody, then what value does that really place on the people that you really do cherish and really love? I think it's really, you don't sit around just throwing love around to everybody. And so with hate, you don't hate everybody. Hate's a very strong emotion, I think a lot of people kind of maybe live in the middle there, but I don't think you should just go around trying to love everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And because, like I said, it really kind of devalues, so to speak, the ones that you do cherish. And, the ones that you do cherish, and you love them and you love them hard. And I think that has a lot more depth and meaning.
Yeah. So the interesting thing for me, is I also grew up not quite as far south as you, but I'm at the very bottom of the state of Illinois. So
Okay.
where I'm at is further south than Kentucky, for instance, right? So also grew up predominantly in the Bible Belt, and I'd go to my girlfriend's house on Sunday mornings, and Jimmy Swaggart would get turned up louder, for my benefit, right? And so at some point in time, I did get quote unquote saved, got super involved, and then became a pastor. I pastored for 25 years. So for a lot of me, a lot of my podcast, I would consider myself a believer still. Well, I am, but I do have a lot of problems with Christianity, and sometimes I get to where I'm almost bashing it a bit, which I'm okay with. I think it deserves some of that. So for you, what were some of the things that were you just maybe never really did accept, but they became at some point in time something that you literally had to reject?
Within the Christian faith?
Yeah.
Really, what was impounded, of course, is the afterlife, the whole afterlife, the heaven and hell. And, of course, you think of a place, you live forever, and there's no sickness, it's just, great and peaceful. Well, of course, anybody would want that, especially when you're, got the other option that if you don't accept that. But I think the really thing that I just reject the most was the whole afterlife thing, because the whole hell thing, it really never made sense to me. And that was one of the big questions I always had, if God was this loving God, why would he even create a place called hell? And then if he knows everything from the beginning to the end, and, why would he even create Satan in the first place? I know the Bible talks, I think he was an angel before, and then he fell from heaven. But if you know everything, why even create it? It was just kind of a system set up to fail no matter what. And that was really one of the biggest turnoffs. And the one thing I've always, was even questioned was that whole theory there.
Yeah, that was probably for me too. I don't know what's on the other side of this thing. I currently believe that we're something more than just our physical body, but I don't know exactly what's on the other side of this thing. But it can't be hell. I mean, that to me, and I had. I've said this a lot on my podcast, but somebody asked me, once, what is the big problem here? Why do you have such a problem with this? And I said, because, God just can't be that big of a dick. I mean, he just, I mean, it's just not possible for him to be that big of a dick and also love everybody. They don't go together. And anybody with any level of cognitive, reasoning would have to say, this doesn't add up. This doesn't work out. So that for me was the thing that was just like, I got to leave some of this stuff behind. I do try to hang on to the Jesus thing. I think it's faith. It could be fear. It could be familiarity. I'm objective enough to say that, but, yeah, it's a tough deal for me. I mean, there must have, dude, you were in this big time. So there was a point where you decided to make a break. That must have been kind of brutal for a bit, wasn't it?
Yeah, you mean when I eventually came out to people? Yeah. I remember the way I found your show was through Bishop Carlton Pearson.
Yeah.
I love that guy. I've listened to his stuff. I love his story of how he kind of, broke away from Christianity and the thought of hell and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And, I saw how people treated him and, just everybody turned their back on him. Well, when I really came to the conclusion, and realized that this is who I am, I didn't tell anyone for a long time, not even really my closest friends. I just kept that because I knew how they would, look. And I want to say too, Satanism, to be a Satanist, if you don't ever want to come out and tell anybody, then, that's fine. You don't have to. It's not like Christianity where you're taught you have to go and tell everybody, the good news of the gospel and all of this. When I came out, I was getting tired because when I came back home after college and all that, I still had that, I guess you would use residue of the church boy. And, everybody around town knew me as that. Oh, are you starting a church now that you're back? And I would just kind of blow them off and make excuses or really not say anything. I really got to the point where I was just tired of it. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to let people know if they ask. So I looking back now, I was still young. And I went on a radio show, and I knew that a lot of my friends were going to be listening. I knew a lot of preachers that I've known was going to be listening. And really on that radio show, looking back, I know it probably wasn't the best way or the smartest way, but I really just let it all out and, told people who I was and about the philosophy of Satanism. And I remember after that, man, I lost a lot of friends, preachers, of course, they didn't want to have anything to do with me. And which was fine. I mean, cause then you really realize and find out who your true friends are. But yeah, man, it was crazy. And that's what the time was really when Facebook was getting really popular. And I remember I had all of these friends on my Facebook. And I remember after that interview, I went back to my page and my friends list declined overnight. And I even had, some people write me and tell me how disappointed they were in me and how that not to ever contact them again. They were praying for me, that they hope I wake up before it's too late. Of course, going back to that fear of hell, they throw at you. But yeah, it was a crazy time, man. But I moved on, and I'm happy, man. I'm truly happy.
Yeah, it's interesting. A few years back, I listened to a lot of Peter Gilmore on different podcasts and, really trying to dive into the Satanic philosophy and their view of life, which is, and correct me here when I'm wrong, but it seems to me that a lot of it is almost based in just the goodness and the brutality of life. Like it is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah. So the weak do get pushed around and the strong do control. And, as it is in nature, it really is with the human animal as well. And so I did like that component a little bit because I do see it seems to play out that way because I don't know, dude, there's just some people that you can't be nice to.
Right. And I'm really surprised to hear you say that because that is what turns a lot of people off from Satanism is, with the weak and the strong and all of that. So,
but it's that way, don't you think?
Go ahead.
Don't you think doesn't life seem to just kind of naturally be that way a little bit? Yeah,
definitely, man. It's just nature. And I think too, it's just common sense. That's just what life is.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people try to sugarcoat it and, going back to the God thing, they make excuses and use God. And yeah, it's natural and it's just common sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it is tough. And I haven't heard LaVey much. I don't know if there's a lot of recordings of him out there or not. So I can't speak much to what, the way he spoke or the things that he said. But Peter Gilmore's an interesting character, and I think you've had maybe limited but some interaction with him in your journey here, right?
Right. Yeah. We've talked, different times through email.
Okay.
I made a post today, because today was the 20th anniversary, 20-year anniversary of when he took over the Church of Satan after LaVey. And he is probably one of the smartest men I've ever talked to. I mean, he's just full of knowledge, super nice guy. So yeah.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed everything that I've heard him on. And I think the thing that's interesting about it, too, is whenever he talks, yeah, he's not the, the personification of what you might think, like, this guy's real evil, wicked, selfish, any of those kinds of things. He comes across incredibly intelligent. And so when you listen to somebody with some intelligence talk about LaVeyan Satanism, and the only reason I keep saying that is because there's so many varieties now, that are using that name. But so is it cool to denote it that way, LaVeyan Satanism?
Well, we don't call it LaVeyan Satanism. We just call it Satanism. Well, a lot of these other groups that are out there that's using the name, or we call them pseudo Satanists.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just Satanism, because it's codified by Anton LaVey. But I mean, I hear that a lot. A lot of people do call it LaVeyan Satanism, I guess, to show people that because they are so many, or a couple of other groups out there that run around calling them Satanists too. So. Yeah,
well, somebody comes up with an idea and everybody takes it.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I know there is some delineation there, but even with LaVey, I mean, he had some belief in metaphysical properties, or no?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of people say that, but from everything I've read, or even with Magus Gilmore that knew the man personally, he was just, no, he didn't believe in a literal devil or anything. Maybe the force of, like we were talking earlier about the force of nature and that kind of stuff. But as far as like a literal devil, no.
Yeah. No, I would agree. Yeah, he didn't believe in any of the spiritual, counterparts. But for instance, I mean, you guys do have some rituals, or no?
Yes, we have what is called greater magic rituals. The main three, I guess you would say, would be lust, destruction, and compassion rituals. Now, let's just take destruction ritual. It's really just a psychodrama. And let's just say you're really upset with someone, or someone's wronged you, and you can't get it out of your system. You're staying up at night thinking about it. Well, a Satanist would go into the ritual chamber and, let all that frustration out. They might yell, scream, cry. They might, put pins in dolls or whatever. And then they leave that emotion there in the ritual chamber, and then they go about their life, and forget about it. Now, if, say, something bad happens to them, then we don't, I don't say, oh no, then it just is what it is. But that's really all it is really a psychodrama. And I would say too that every Satanist doesn't perform, ritual. It's not like a requirement that you have to do just to be, that you're a Satanist. I know some Satanists that do, and then I know other Satanists that think it's just pointless and don't even do it.
Yeah. So basically, you do the destruction ritual. You're not expecting anything to happen to the other person. That's more about you.
Yeah, it's really all for you to make you feel better. Like I said, to get all of that frustration and all of that stuff out of your system to make you feel better. Okay.
So there was another interesting one, and this is from the 11 Satanic Rules of the Earth. Looks like this came about in 1967. That's also by LaVey. So little couple interesting here. Number 11 says, when walking in open territory, bother no one. If someone bothers you, ask him to stop. If he does not stop, destroy him. So,
Right.
so that's pretty hardcore, man. Tell me a little bit
Right.
about your idea or the philosophy behind something like that.
Well, destroy could mean a lot of things. It doesn't mean, if someone um, does something wrong to you, you go out and kill them. Of course, that's not what it's saying. Destroy can be anything. If someone is done you wrong, and you've asked them to stop, and they don't, then, you could go and say ruin their reputation. You could tell stuff about them. You could even, if it came down to it with certain legal things, you could take them to court and sue them. That's a form of destroying somebody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, some of this, regardless of the way that it's worded, I actually agree with a lot of this, right? Because when it says do not give your opinions or advice unless you're asked, do not that's number 1. These are the 11.
Wouldn't that be great for today's time?
Oh, Lord have mercy. Yes, it would. Or whatever. Yeah, but the 11 satanic rules of the earth. So, yeah, that's number 1. Number 2, do not tell your troubles to others unless you are sure they want to hear them. When in another's lair, which is a little bit of showmanship there, but show him respect or else do not go there. What I like about this basically is, as you read through the 11 satanic rules of the earth, if I could just put this into a philosophy, the idea is basically, look, you do what you want to do, right? You be happy and don't go, screwing around with everybody else's life. Just be a decent individual and do your thing. If you don't like somebody, then don't mess with them. Just right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You got it.
Yeah, so I do like some of this because it's basically, and I agree. I don't care about most people's opinions. If I do, I'll ask them for it.
Right.
I have noticed, when a lot of people, dude, there's some people that I know that I the standard saying is, hey man, how's it going? But there's some people it's like, I can't say that because they're going to actually tell me and I don't care.
Right. Yeah. Trust me. I get it. You go around, how you doing? And then they really start to tell you how they're doing. You're like, oh crap.
Yeah. I didn't want to know. Yeah. Yeah, so I do some of the philosophy as I read through the Satanic Bible when I did, and then much of the literature on the website, which I think is churchofsatan.com. Yeah, a lot of the philosophies really do deeply resonate with me. And I even think some of the, I don't know what Gilmore's house looks like now, but the old one was pretty cool, all painted in black and...
the Black House, yeah.
Yeah, super interesting. Do you fall into some of that garb?
The aesthetic is one of the things as Satanists really. I guess you would say a lot of Satanists have you would call it the spooky aesthetic, or the kind of the Addams Family type. Yes, I am, but I don't walk around in all black all the time. I wear, whatever I want to wear, what I think looks good. As far as, my home, me and my wife, we have it fixed up to what makes us happy. And I guess if some people would come into our home and say it's really spooky, or, some people might come and say, oh, this is really cool. But it's really just to fit what you like. And you were speaking of Mingus Gilmore's home, and he's actually got a black house now too, which is beautiful on the outside. I've never been in. I've just seen pictures, and then like you said, LeVay, he had a black house, and I've seen pictures of that. So and I do in my home. We have a place. I guess you would call it our altar, our satanic altar, and everything. But it's in another room. It's not when people come in, that's what they see. And some people other Satanists might not even have an altar. It's just really, it's all up to you and what works for you.
Yeah. So the podcast that you do, the Demented One, is basically. I mean, give me a rundown on what you're doing there.
The Demented One. When I started the show, the channel, I wanted to kind of give a show where I could have other Satanists on and let people see what real true life Satanists are doing in their everyday life. And it's not what, is portrayed in Hollywood and movies and all of this crazy nonsense. What they're doing in their life, what they're accomplishing, and how they're applying and using the tools of Satanism. And then there's other shows on there where, I might have a guest on and we take a topic and we do a whole discussion with, a third side perspective on it. And I'm getting ready to start a new segment on the show where I go through, I guess, and not really just poke fun at, some of these mega church pastors and stuff, but kind of bring light to the hypocrisy with, that's involved in all of that. Just something a little fun. But yeah, that's kind of the rundown. I've been doing it for a couple of years, and the channel's growing, and got a lot of cool stuff in store for it.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting because and I don't know to the level of which the Church of Satan is accepted in our culture. I would assume mildly so anyway. Do you still get like nasty emails and stuff? I mean, what's up with that?
I don't really get a lot of nasty emails. Every now and then I'll get, someone that doesn't even know me, but sees the show. They'll write and tell me that I'm going to hell and all of this nonsense. But what I do get a lot of is people writing, asking, how do I sell my soul to Satan? And I want to be rich and famous and all of this crap. That's what I get the most of with the show and on the Facebook page is those crazy messages, and then you have to write them back and tell them, you definitely don't get it. This is not what this is about. And a lot of them, they're just, I use the word, I guess, is pretty much losers, man. They're not happy with their life, and they're trying to cash in to I guess, make themselves better. They're thinking if they can just sell their soul to this, deity called the devil, then everything would be great.
Yeah. So with Satanism, I mean, do you feel like it is a philosophy of sorts? And I mean, do you see it that way, or how do you view it?
Yeah, I view it as a philosophy. And then also a religion, because like I said, we do have ritual and things like that, but mostly I look at it as a philosophy and a tool. Satanism is a tool to get, the best out of life for yourself and whatever works for you. And that doesn't mean that, everyone is going to be rich and, a movie star or whatever. It's really if you're happy with your life and you're doing everything you can do to better your life and you're happy, then you're successful. It doesn't mean you have to have, millions of dollars in the bank. As long as you're happy, if you're happy with going to a 9-to-5 job and you're living your life to the fullest and you like coming home to your wife and kids, then that's all good. If that's what makes you happy, then that's what it's about.
So whenever you talk about it being a tool, tell me, can you explain that or expand upon that?
Yeah, well, when I say it's a tool, like you were talking about the 9 satanic statements, using those, or even the 11 satanic rules on the earth, you're applying them with everyday life. Like you said, don't give your opinion or advice unless you're asked. Applying all that. And for most Satanists, that's really just, or for all Satanists, it's really just it's just an everyday thing you do anyway, because that's just who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Does that make sense? I mean,
It actually does. And I think that, aside from calling it Satanism, right? The satanic statements, the 11 rules of the earth, the even the satanic sins with like stupidity and salopialism. I mean, if you could take those three statements as an individual and apply those to your life and practice them, your quality as a human being triples or quadruples at least, I think. So I do think there's actually a lot of incredible information in those three particular pieces of work anyway. So, I mean, like salopialism, where you're assuming that other people kind of think the way that you think.
right.
I mean, it's a terrible thing to fall into.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
So-
I mean, if you think someone's always, thinks the way you think, then that's really when you get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And I do, like you just said, it makes a lot of sense. I do get messages like that from people that are not, Satanists, and they claim they're a Christian, and they'll say, you know what, a lot of stuff that I've heard that what Satanism is, it makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I would never admit that to anyone else or my friends, but, they write me and tell me that too. It really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to be open to good information, regardless of what the source is. Okay,
Right.
So one of the things that really started resonating to me is the Siddhartha Gautama, which was the original Buddha, right? So he wasn't a god in his mind anyway, nor did he really have much appreciation for the gods. So a lot of those early Buddhist writings directly from him were really dealing with life in the here and now, not in the hereafter. And so a lot of those really resonated with me. And at first, when I started talking about, hey, this is cool. I mean, the first thing a lot of my friends did or said was, so what, you're Buddhist now? Well, yeah, right. So it's like, well, not necessarily, but dude, I can like what other people said. It doesn't make me one.
Yeah, and I think too, a lot of people get caught up in the afterlife thought, and they just really forget how to live and enjoy life here, because they're waiting on something better instead of really just sitting back and getting themselves together and making their life better. So they're automatically just waiting on an afterlife. Oh, it's going to get better. And I'm sure you've heard all of that too. One day it's just going to be great. No, let's make it great now. Get off your butt and change if you're not happy with your life, and do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the responsibility issue, I think, too, you kind of alluded to that earlier, which I thought was really good. And I think it's incredibly applicable, and to those out there, those Christians or whatever you are listening, I think that a lot of times we're looking for God or some metaphysical force to make our lives better, where Satanism would say, what?
You do it. You make your life better. You do something. You change it. If you're not happy and you want it better, then you get up and do it. And that's when it comes to the responsible, because a lot of people are not willing to do that. They want to sit around and want somebody else to do it for them or change. No, you have to. You've got to do it, and that's the only way your life is going to get better.
And that would be a hardcore tenet, right, of your
Right.
belief system.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Responsibility, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I mean, is that? I'm sort of double asking a question here, but is that a big part of the satanic viewpoint? Responsibility.
Definitely, yeah. Responsibility, and like I said, a lot of people are not willing to take the responsibility for their lives or their actions. Like I said in the beginning, if they do something wrong instead of taking responsibility, they blame it on a devil. And then, vice versa, if they do something good, they want to give credit to a God instead of just saying, no, it was me the whole time.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, a lot of people are, they're praying to something to make their lives better. And they'll spend an entire lifetime doing that and never really take action, or responsibility for their own happiness.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a flaw.
It's kind of like, if somebody's sitting around wanting a job, a lot of people sit around and say, oh, I'm praying for a job. Well, have you went and put in an application anywhere? Well, no, I'm just waiting on the Lord. Well, there's your problem right there.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge portion of what I find attractive about the satanic viewpoint is because I think that I know that throughout my lifespan, so often I was I don't know, I guess asking a higher being, the divine God, whatever, to do things instead of just taking responsibility and making those changes happen.
Right.
And it breeds, and you were in the Rod Parsley camp. You were in, I know the First Church of God of Prophecy that's a Pentecostal setting, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Strict Pentecostal. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew Parsley was charismatic anyway, but the Church of God of Prophecy, I've never actually been in one, but I assumed based on their belief system that it was a Pentecostal practice.
Yep. Oh yeah, speaking in tongues, running, dancing. If you're divorced, you can't remarry. All the rules and trappings and everything there.
Okay. So, dude, I mean, you had to have in your life or in your time there had people that contracted cancer or some serious illness, and the church prayed and prayed and prayed, and then the unfortunate individual died anyway.
Right. Yeah. And funny you said that.
Oh, you mentioned something similar to that. Yes. My apologies. Yeah.
No, I was going to say my mother, she no, I didn't mean nothing bad about it. I was just saying I was thinking of while you was speaking, I thought about this story. My mother, of course, she had spine cancer. And I remember I was young, we went to church that Sunday morning, and the preacher was preaching, and he said, you guys, everybody needs to come back tonight. I found out how to get people healed through God. And of course, when we were going out the door, of course, he grabbed my mother and told her, he said, "No, I want you back here tonight. God's going to heal you." And me being the young, and I'm like, I would did anything for my mother, to been healed. So we went back that night, and I was like, okay, I want to see this. Well, he got up and he was reading some scripture, and he said, the way to get you healed is when we pray in Jesus' name. And I remember they called my mom up to the front, like most Pentecostal churches do, and they all gathered around her and laid hands, and they prayed in Jesus' name, all of this. But she was rolled back out in a wheelchair the same way she came in. She never got healed. And I remember my mother, when Benny Hinn, I'm sure you've heard of him, would come on TV, he would like, stretch your hands this way, God's going to heal you. And she would do all of that, but nothing ever happened.
Yeah. How did that set with you, man?
That was really where, like I said, I always had questions, but it really kind of started sealing things before I got to Bible college. I was just like, if this God loves you unconditionally and he healed all these people in the Bible, why couldn't he just heal my mom? Because she's got kids, to take care of, and she's a good woman. She's, she don't break the law. She's a great woman. But yeah, it's just like, what? It just really it started sealing everything for me.
That's a big one for sure. Especially coming from that setting. I was involved in that setting too. So I was came up first in a Southern Baptist, and then I went to Pentecostal, then a super strict Pentecostal, then the Assemblies of God. But the healing thing was always a big deal because it just so rarely happened.
Right.
You know, and after a while you're just like, dude, I'm having the buy-in here is it's fading, you know? It's fading.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't want, you know, with the stories and stuff of my life, I don't want people to think that, oh, well, he just is doing this because, you know, he's mad at God, or, you know, that typical thing you hear. And that's further from the truth. You know, I don't believe in any of that stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's nobody to be mad at.
Right. Yeah, there's no one to be mad at. That's just a part of life.
Yeah.
People get sick, and, you know, and then when people do get well or better, you know, people want to think a God instead of, you know, thinking a doctor or scientist, you know, that helped come up with medicine or whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, and it's well, I don't know, dude. I don't know. It's so super sacrilegious, but you know, there's times when I've given somebody something and they've said, you know, well, I was just so happy, man, that happened, and I just really thanked God for it, you know, and there's a part of you that's like, well, dude, maybe you should thank me because I'm the one that gave it to you. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh, I've been there, man. I've actually, you know, someone actually in my family was hit a kind of a rough spot financially, and I tried to get some money together and gave it to them to kind of help them out. It wasn't much, but it was a little bit, you know. And when they got it, all they said was, I've been praying for this, and God's answered my prayer, and he's so worthy and wonderful, you know. And I'm sitting there like you, like, no, I freaking gave you that. I worked my tail off for that.
It's kind of true, though, man.
Right.
I, you know, and the tough things for me is, I still do have a connection with my faith, but I also have that same thing of like, well, wait a second, man, let's just be like really honest here, you know, about it. You know, it seems to me like the role played in you getting this thing was another individual doing something kind, as opposed to a deity getting involved. And so that's coming from someone who believes in a deity, but I still think, you know, there's a lot of fear in a lot of religions. I'm most familiar with Christianity because that's what I was involved in, which is why it keeps coming up. But I think there's a lot of fear in not crediting the deity with the blessing because it's going to piss the deity off and then he's going to take it away. And that's no way to live your life, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I agree. You know, people think if they don't thank a deity or a God, you know, for whatever they get, then he is going to take it away. Or, I mean, you can even get into the whole tithing and sowing seed and all of that. You know, they believe if they don't pay their 10% to a church, you know, then they're not going to be blessed. Or, I mean, I've seen all of that. You know, I've seen people sow what they call sowing seed. You know, if you want a healing, if you want a new house, and I've watched all that, and because they're so afraid if they don't give back to their God, then they're not going to get any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I've watched it, and I've seen people give tons of money. Nothing happened. They didn't get a new house. You know who got a new house? That man on the stage is who got the new house. And
Yeah.
new cars, you know.
Yeah, the seed thing, you know, for those of you listening that you don't, maybe you're not familiar with that, there's, especially within the charismatic vein, there's a seed faith, and basically the seed is your money, and every
That's
time.
money, right? Gotta be your money. Can't be anything else.
No, it can't be 5 hours in prayer or anything. It's got to be dollar bills, nicely folded. But yeah, so that's what that is. You give money, and not to a friend or a family member. You give it to the church, to the quote unquote the Lord, and then He will respond by answering your prayer, which never works and is honestly, man, it's disgusting, quite frankly.
I remember, man, the first time I went to World Harvest, and they were preaching, and I started seeing people walking up to the stage, and they were just throwing money on the stage. And as soon as they started doing that, I said, this reminds me of a freaking strip club. You're just going up to the stage and throwing money.
Mm.
And they did it, man. I mean, just by the time he was done preaching, I mean, it was on the steps to the stage. It was just totally green with money because people were going up there.
Yeah, dude. We had a guy in our church that went to he had some kind of camp meeting thing every year. I can't remember what he called it.
Right.
But anyway, they went to his church and
Dominion camp meeting.
Yeah, Dominion, yeah.
Yep.
So they came back and they said, and it was the first church I pastored. It was really small, man. And they're like, hey, man, I just got some really good news I wanted to share with you. And I'm like, yeah, what's up, dude? And he goes, I gave $1,000 for 1,000 souls in this church to Rod Parsley. I was like, okay.
Wow.
Well, you could have given me the $1,000,
Right,
just
yeah.
the same, right? But whatever, Yeah, so those
I've
things are
seen
kind
it,
of
man.
strange.
Yeah. And it was funny, man. I mean, in every service they would go to a Bible verse, a chapter and a verse. And they said, okay. And the funny thing is they would always go to Psalms, because Psalms, 107 or whatever. They never would go to like John 1:1, but they would go say Psalms 107 verse 3. Now God wants you to sow $107.03 seed tonight. And I'm just cracking up. I'm like, why can't you just go to John 1:1 or something like $1.01? No, it has to be the highest one up there.
Absolutely. Well, of course,
Just
man.
Craziest stories, man.
It is, dude, and it's sad because I think a lot of people, well, obviously a lot of people, they place the entire well-being of their existence, their happiness, their finances, their health, they place that entirely on God or a deity of some form, and never really truly take responsibility for their own life. And that turns out to be a really big problem for a lot of people.
Right, yeah. And I used to think, it's the preachers that were so selfish with the mega church pastors, with wanting all this money. But then you start looking and, the people, the congregation is just as selfish because they're giving this stuff to get this stuff. They're giving money to get something. And I have no problem being selfish, but call it what it is. Don't wrap it up and call it a God thing.
Yeah, so, and I know I've held you for a bit here, but let me just explore a couple more things real quick, and then I'll let you go.
Yeah, no problem.
So the Satanic view of existence or of living is absolute indulgence. I mean, if you want to be a selfish guy, you can. I mean, how does that work?
Well, it's you can indulge, but let's just say if you want to indulge in drinking a beer or wine or even some Jack Daniels or whatever your preference is, that's fine. But just when it comes a problem, as in when you do too much, I guess you would say, where it becomes a hindrance to your life, where you feel like you can't go a day without drinking, or you're not happy, that's when it becomes a problem. There's really a limit, and that goes back to being responsible.
Yeah, what's interesting? I mean, one of my favorite writings is the 9 Satanic Sins, right? And
Mm-hmm.
let me just go. I'm not going to read the narrative with them, but I'm going to read what they are just one by one. So the 9 satanic sins, which I've always thought's really good. The first one is, and this is from Anton LaVey. The first one is stupidity. The second one is pretentiousness. The third one is salopiolism. The fourth is self-deceit. The fifth is herd conformity. The sixth is lack of perspective. The seventh is forgetfulness of past orthodoxies. Number 8 is counterproductive pride. And number 9 is lack of aesthetics. And I really think each one of those is actually really important, quite frankly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Ignorance, stupidity is one thing. Ignorance, you can always learn. But just don't be stupid,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, and two, it goes back to just really common sense.
So when we talk about Satanism, we're talking about a way of governing or guiding or living your life. I mean, that's really what this is about. It's not about, I mean, this is going to sound stupid, but it's not about sacrificing humans. It's not about sex on an altar. It's not about worshiping the devil or conjuring demons. I mean, this is a philosophical way of living your life. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it with the people that say, Satanism is about sacrificing babies or whatever, and it's clear as day in the Satanic Bible that under no circumstance would a Satanist sacrifice any animal or baby.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it's, but a lot of people don't take the time to read. They just hear what they want to hear or what the media portrays or even Hollywood.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely, I lived through, so I'm probably a lot older than you, but I lived through the Satanic Panic and, every band was, sacrificing children in the studio and all kinds of stuff, Yeah.
I just, me and another guest, we recorded a show discussing the whole Satanic Panic, which is releasing tomorrow. And I just did a whole show on that, just the craziness and the crap that went along with it.
It was unbelievable, dude. It was really crazy. Yeah. Every small town thought they had a coven of Satanists out in the woods doing stuff. So, yeah, it was pretty crazy. So real quick, man, let's talk about how do people hear the podcast or listen to the content that you're putting out?
Yeah, all you got to do is go to YouTube and just search The Demented One, and we'll pop right up. We're on Facebook, The Demented One, Twitter, The Demented One. So it's really simple. All you got to do is on any of those platforms, just type in The Demented One, and it'll pull it right up.
Sweet. Yeah. And then if people want to connect with you personally, what are some of the good ways that they can, make contact with you?
Personally, I would say the Demented One Facebook page is the best place to reach me. And yeah, that's probably the best way to reach me. And also on that page, I have 3 other guys that help run the page. But if someone sends a message or whatever for me, of course I'll see it all anyway. So
okay, cool. So the Demented One, the Facebook page is the best way to connect with you, and then to watch your content and stuff. Just hop on YouTube and type in the Demented One, and one is actually the number, not the word, right?
Right, yeah, just number. And I think also if you even type in just the Demented One with, the word or one spelled out, it'll also pull that, it pulls us up too.
Okay. All right, dude. Well, hey, man, thanks so much for hanging out with me, man. I really appreciate you being on, and I'd love to have you back if you do it.
Yeah, definitely, man. I've enjoyed it. And like I said, I really enjoy your show. One thing I really dig about your show is, you have your thoughts, your beliefs, but you allow other folks to come on and kind of share what their practice is or, what their beliefs is. I really like that and dig that, man.
Yeah, dude, I think it was Marcus Aurelius who said, if you think you know a thing, you're unable to learn it. And
Right.
and so that's one of the things that I think I'm coming to realize is there's so much I don't know, and I thought I did, and in thinking that I did, I hindered myself.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Always learn.
I always learn. Yeah. So
Always question everything.
yeah. So dude, thanks again, man. Hang on the line for just a second because I want to talk to you for a minute or two.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, everybody. I'll catch you on the other side of the music. Hey guys, thanks so much, man, for being a part of this conversation. I hope that it was enjoyable for you. You know, I hope that you were able to glean something from it. Maybe it is something that you find interesting, or maybe it's something that just gives you a bit of perspective. You know, there's so many different ideas and beliefs out in the world that we live in today, and I always find it healthy to at least hear portions of those ideas, you know, to see which ones resonate with me. The spiritual path, the path of being alive, the path of being human is quite convoluted. There isn't a way, right? There really isn't, and we seem to be an amalgamation of different ideas and beliefs and influences, brainwashings even, right? And some of those things kind of filter in and seep in, and we just become this potpourri of ideas and brainwashings and spirituality that really constructs who we are. So I think it's important to just hear people out and see which portions of their story resonate with your story, right? And that's why sometimes the labels, I think, get a little convoluted because they have so many ideas connected or attached to them that we begin to departmentalize people. This one's a Christian, this one's a Satanist, this one's New Age, this one's whatever. And as we begin to depart, well, what's the old phrase? If you label me, you negate me, right? So sometimes I think we departmentalize people, and it doesn't allow us to hear the potpourri, the amalgamation that is them, and have an opportunity to grow and glean and listen and mature from them. So once again, guys, hey, would love to connect with you on Instagram. Please do that, even if you're not in the mood right now, right? You're just, I don't know, dude, if I want to connect with it, just do it, man. It's a nice thing for you to do. Go connect with me on Instagram. If you want to connect with Blake, again, official_Demented One. And you can also find him on YouTube, youtube.com/Demented One. And that's it, man. I will catch you guys next week. Done.